spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Storytime with the Scariest Podcast.
Woo!
I didn't even look at my hair before I got here, and I just realized it's an effing mess. Okay, cool.
We're doing a show. Hello, I'm Adam Diaz. This is Robin Grace. She's all discombobbled because she decided to order boba right before the show started. Shout out to Rock and Tour 83 who followed us over there on Twitch.
It's Rock Centaur.
My fucking bad, dog. Rock Centaur, I did not mean to offend your Rock and Centaur people. That is on me, and I sincerely apologize. No, Robin decided that she was going to Grubhub boba before the show, despite the fact I said, don't do that. It'll get here right when the show's about to start, and lo and behold, someone was right, someone was wrong.
I was sitting here before the show started, just saying.
She was, just barely, and then she had to mix the foam into her boba, which spilled everywhere, and then we had to get a paper towel, so... Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate everyone that's here doing this show live with us. We do them live Tuesdays, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is the time and day right now. It is March 31st. It is the end of March. Hallelujah. It is finally going to come to an end. Let's hope that April goes well. We also record at twitch.tv/scarishpodcast or youtube.com/scarish. And shout out to Glitchgrim, who has resubscribed for the 11th month, says redeem high five, hashtag this podcast ducks. First high five of the show. Thank you so much for that. And also shout out to Dragon's Nest PC, Dana Sackett, Rusty Shell, and Nike Arts, who all followed us when we were off the air. We appreciate all of you as well. Good stuff. All right, so Robin, explain what Storytime is and all that fun stuff for the beautiful listeners.
So Storytime is where we read your homegrown horrors. So homegrown horrors are stories of paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, sometimes true crime, sometimes absolutely hilariously scary yet coincidental. Stories that you, your friends, your family all have. You folks share them with us, and we get to share them with the rest of his spooky friends, and it's great time, super fun. And if you folks want to send your stories, where can they send them?
You can send them over to storytime@scarish.com. That is our email address, and you can also hit us up on any of our social medias. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter is @scarishpod, Instagram is @scarishpodcast, and Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. So, fun stuff. I believe we have one really, really, really long email, and then a relatively short and a relatively medium to long one. So we're only going to have 3, but that one really long email is going to be read by Robin. So we're going to go Adam, Robin, commercial break, Robin, Adam. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and get that started. So the first one that I have here is Matriarchs, Deja Vu, and Apparitions, which, again... really good subjects coming through, and I sincerely appreciate it from you folks. It's good shit. Starts out like this. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I just recently found your podcast, and I must say I'm enamored. Good
Yay.
word, and we're happy to hear that.
That's like they're in love with it.
It's good.
It's
a
great.
good thing. It's really cool how you guys are able to combine scary stories and stuff with humor to make it both spooky, but also extremely entertaining. Thank you. It's so nice of you.
This last episode I thought was really great.
I thought we fucking killed it this last episode.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun, but
it was horrific.
It was absolutely horrific.
The stuff we covered was just like heartbreaking and sad, but I thought we did a good job and we paid respect to the topics.
Yeah.
I thought we did a really good job. But anyways, this is us sucking our own dicks. Let's get back to you. I will admit, I initially typed up a very long response on your Insta, but I was in the middle of an episode and forgot to send it to the email. I tried to copy it, but accidentally unsent it. So this is all being retyped. LOL. I wish not to disclose my name, but I would like to share a story. If not with the podcast, then with you guys. Well, we'll put it with the podcast, but we'll keep your name to ourselves. My family has a very strong set of matriarchs on my mother's side, meaning the influence of our female ancestors on that side is very strong. My mother has told me she has heard and seen them in her dreams, and that they also contribute to her gut feeling, and she will occasionally come in to check on me at night because her mom told her to.
Wow.
Her mother passed before I was born. In my case, I do not see or hear them, but I do get a lot of prophetic dreams. I dream extremely frequently of events that come true in reality, including full conversations. I can clearly recall all the details of the dream until the event occurs in reality, and then the details fade if I don't dwell on them. I feel like for a lot of folks that have either talked to us in person, or have emailed us, they do mention a lot of times that they have prophetic dreams where, like, not all of the details are there, but, like, the highlights are there, and then as it starts unfolding, they're like, oh shit, I dreamt this.
It's like Final Destination, where he pricks his finger.
I hate you so much. We watched Final Destination 5, and it was
It was bad. It was real bad.
My 3-word sentence review of Final Destination 5, it was garbage. I can clearly recall all the details of the dream until the event occurs in reality, and then the details fade if I don't dwell on them. I said that once already. I have dreamt entire increments of conversation and have gone through conversations with full knowledge of what the other person is going to say next and how I'm going to respond, although these types of dreams are rare. I don't know if this counts, but when my brother's wife was pregnant, I guessed what the news was when he called my mom as a joke and was right, and the same thing happened when his wife went into labor.
You know what's funny is you always
predict pregnancies.
I don't know how he does it, but he does.
Yeah, I've done that lots and lots. So it's something where, like, I've had that happen to me, so I fully relate to that. Another fun bit is how my late grandma, who was mentioned before briefly, likes to visit my grandpa, who lives with us and is on bed rest. They hated each other when she died, and it seems like she likes to mess with him. He has seen her on multiple occasions standing in front of him, watching him sleep, or looming over him.
I would do that to you.
I was going to say, this sounds like something that you do if we grow old together and you die first. In the past, this used to cause him to wheel himself into the living room and sleep on the couch for a month or two before going to his room again. He has only one leg and used a wheelchair for transportation. I just wanted to share this, and I'm okay if it's mentioned on the show, although I would prefer to remain anonymous if it does. I love what you guys do, and even if you don't read this, keep creeping. Well, thank you so much for sending that in, anonymous. Yeah. We appreciate you sharing that with us. I definitely come from a family where we have lots of folks who have had prophetic dreams or have, like, premonitions or things like that, and I'm no exception, although I try and not hype mine up too much. I just like to tell people, like, I figure you've been fucking, not using protection, therefore you're pregnant. So there's definitely a few times where I'm just like, something's weird, and I'm not sure what it is, and I start thinking through my friends, like, I wonder who this feeling applies to, and I'm like, I think this is it. And I mentioned to Robin, for the most recent one, like, I just get the feeling like this has happened, and then, like, 2 weeks later, I found out, like, yup, was totally friggin' right. So it's creepy, but it's one of those things where it's like, you feel kind of special that you can do that. So what do you think?
I think there are people out there that have this ability to see things like deja vu things. You know, it happens to people, and sometimes you just get the feeling. You just have this feeling like that's what's going to happen, or how it's gonna be. But it's happened in my family before, where things, it's like something comes to them and tells them this is going to happen, you know? So I totally understand.
Well, thank you for elaborating on that while not striking me. We all appreciate that I wasn't hit.
So this first email that I'm going to read is titled, Homegrown, Not All Horror Stories.
Right on. It's good to know. Some of them are homegrown. Oh, I mean, they're all homegrown, but not all of them are horror.
Yeah, and hopefully that means they're not all super scary, and there's a comedy one in there, or not. Who knows? We'll see.
We'll find out, I'm sure.
All right, so it begins. Greetings again, Adam and Robin.
Greetings.
Greetings. My name is Annette, and as promised, here are more stories. These are more than welcome to be read on the show. Sorry in advance, there are a lot of stories here, and so this is a very long email.
This is the one that we're going to split in half, so we're going to do half of it now and then half of it later. Already talked about it. Continue.
First, since I promised Robin on Tuesday that I would send along the story about my sisters and my recurring dream, I'll start with that. What I think is weirdest about this is that we both had similar dreams for an entire week leading before my grandmother had her heart attack. We were in different locations entirely during that whole time, and we had no clue of each other having these recurring dreams.
Wow.
My sister had just started high school that year and decided that she wanted to go with my uncle to Puerto Rico. We didn't have cell phones, and we didn't really have much chance to talk over the phone, maybe once a week. And as she had just left, I think we had just had one phone call conversation. I'll note here that I was only in the 3rd grade, and it was nearly 30 years ago, so my memory of the frequency of conversation is fuzzy. It wasn't until we had actually been at the ER with my grandmother and confirmed that it was a heart attack that we had contacted my uncle and informed him and my sister that they needed to return home, which is Ohio. By the time my sister and I were reunited, Grandma had been in the hospital for an entire day. She and my uncle returned on a red-eye and made it in the late evening. I was already asleep in an RV of another one of our uncles. I remember this because I had awakened when I heard the RV door open and she came in by herself. As it was just us, we decided to chat up a bit, especially since I had opened with, quote, "I had a feeling something was going to happen, but not to Grandma," end quote. Her reaction was one of a little confusion at first, then she said that she kind of had a suspicion too. I asked her to explain what she meant, so she told me the details of her dream at that point. The similarities between the two sets of dreams were uncanny. We both dreamed that our father's biological mother, we never called her Grandma as she was unknown to us in that capacity, Dad rarely ever communicated with or mentioned her, and we only knew of her and that she existed, so we usually just referred to her by her first name, Verna. She had been doing housework of some sort. Mine was that she was painting one of the rooms of her house, and she was on a ladder, while my sister's was also with Verna on a small folding ladder, but either dusting a light fixture or changing the light bulb in the fixture. In both dreams, we saw Verna suddenly grab at her left side around the shoulder/chest area.
Oh no.
And fall off the ladder and collapse on the floor beside the ladder. The dream would then cut to us getting a phone call at home with our parents informing us that Verna was in the hospital as she had just suffered a heart attack and fall. Again, we'd had these every night for a week, sometimes multiple times a night, before my grandmother actually had her big heart attack and went to the hospital. My parents, Grandma, and I had taken a trip to Lake Erie, so we weren't anywhere near home when everything kind of blew up and exploded. Being that I was only 8 years old, that's how it felt. My next story that I'm going to tell you is how I knew something of my family's heritage on my dad's side that not even my dad knew until I was finishing my freshman year of high school. It's actually one of my first memories of something strange and out of the ordinary, even for my family. My sister and mother have strange abilities and experiences too. I had known of the heritage since I was maybe 4 or so years old. Told my parents around the age of 6 that I knew this, which to my dad went untrue and unfounded until I was 15 years old, when my dad was quote-unquote handed the information from his biological mother, yes, Verna, through a confession admitting that she was trying to hide and deny her Native American blood. She was Blackfoot. He rounded on me and asked me how I knew this when he didn't know until that very day. I remember when he rounded on me about it, I looked directly in his eyes and unflinchingly said, quote, "If I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me." And he said, "Try me anyway." I straight up told him that his brother, my Uncle Donnie, who had died at the age of 7 years old, had told me, and that I had known since I was around 4 or so. My dad said that wasn't possible, then asked why I didn't speak up until I was about 6 years old to mention it the first time, and I told him because I knew he wouldn't believe me, and I felt he didn't really believe me even though he had the admission from his own biological mother. He was kind of dumbfounded and speechless by my retort, and I just calmly walked away and went to my room. Sometimes, the things that kids say are just like, how is that possible that you knew that before I did, or stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or like when kids, there's been times where kids go up to their moms that are pregnant or whatever, and it's like, I have a sister coming.
Yeah, baby in the belly. I've heard that before, where someone walks up and it's like, I'm going to have a brother and sister soon. It's like they just know, and I think it's because kids talk a lot. Once they learn to talk, they like to talk, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you just kind of start tuning them out. I think that's the reason why a lot of folks don't listen to when they say something that they really need to be paying attention to, because it's like mind-blowing. But it's like we saw that in Drunk History last night, where they're like, kids always talk, you know, who listens to them? And I think it was actually, what's your face? Georgia Hardstark. It was her episode, and she's like, no one, and what's his face? The guy who hosts Drunk History is like, bus drivers. And he decides, like, through kids gossiping about their parents' business, this bus driver had plotted some ridiculous conspiracy. God.
My third story is from when I was 11 years old and I had broken my arm. It's the next experience that I can fully remember that no one can explain, and also was a kind of turning point into... Sorry, the banner just moved a lot, and I was like, what?
The air conditioning is on, by the way.
Oh, okay.
That's why the banner's moving.
That I can fully remember that nobody can explain. Also was a kind of turning point into which more and more strange experiences started occurring. I had been rollerblading in front of my grandmother's house, and due to her heart attack was very weak, and couldn't speak more than whispers, and couldn't walk without a walker and a person walking with her. She had been sitting on the porch and witnessed what had happened. Her chain link fence stood about 3 to 3.5 feet high, and as I wasn't really good or well balanced on roller skates or rollerblades, I was using the fence to help keep my balance, as well as to stop and make turns, so I was restricted to just the sidewalk area along the front yard that was fenced. I always swept the sidewalk before I rollerbladed too, just because it was the city. I didn't want to have broken glass in a cut or scrape should I have a fall, and especially didn't want rocks to trip me up. I was out rollerblading for maybe 30 minutes, Grandma sitting on the porch watching me when it happened. A rock had gotten wedged in the wheels of one of my blades, and I flew about the fence by about 2 or 3 feet. And I remember that because I leaned toward the fence to try and catch myself before falling. The fence was out of my reach. I had reached it with my fingertips as my outstretched left arm and hand came level to it, and my fingertips just slipped off of the top of the fence. My next reaction was one of natural reactions, to place both of my hands underneath me as I landed to brace for the impact.
Ooh, sounds bad.
But remember, I had leaned to reach for the fence while still in the air, which caused my left side to be closer to the ground as I landed. I remember as I landed feeling as if I had somebody or something trying to lift me to stop my fall. I remember that landing and that it didn't hurt like I was expecting it to, and I remember thinking that it felt like many of the other times I had landed after a fall, but that something was different in that I couldn't immediately move more than turning my head to look at my grandmother on the porch and at my neighbors across the street, just pulling up and parking from their trip to the grocery store. I felt my arm come up, my forearm completely straight and not bent strangely or anywhere it wasn't supposed to be. And I remember my right arm and hand moving to support and hold my left arm. Hint, remember this point for later when the x-ray reveals my break. Oh, dear Lord. I did not move my arms. They were moved for me. I felt them being moved for me. That's super creepy.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I'm just going to keep it real here. You did just suffer a pretty significant fall. You could be a little loopy, just saying. I have eaten shit really, really hard before, and it's like changed my jaw forever because I fucked up my face. I mean, that's why my face looks the way it does. Emanon51588 redeemed to ask a question says, don't listen to him, Robin. It's not the air conditioner. It's a trap. Because you're on quarantine, he's reaching his wit's end.
It's funny.
No, it is just the AC. No, like when I was a kid, I was driving. We had this lake behind our house, and I used to like ride my bike to it. It was like a mile or a mile and a half away, and my shoelace came untied. I might have talked about this on the show before. And when my shoelace came untied on my bike, my shoelace got wrapped around in the spoke, and it got so tight I could feel my foot being pulled closer and closer, like to the spoke. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And it occurred to me what had happened. So I stopped my bike, and I always, because I'm a righty, when I stopped my bike, I would reach my right leg out to plant, so it would be like my right leg was my kickstand, you know? And because my right leg was like lashed, in this case, to the bike, when I like stopped and started to lean, I went to put my foot down, and my foot was like, you know, not available for use at the time. And I realized immediately like, oh shit, I'm going to fall. There was nothing I could do. I had started to lean, all my weight was going that way, so like I'm on my bike, I'm on this gravel road, and I started to lean that way, and as I fell, I reached my arm out, and my hand hit the ground, and because it was gravel, the rocks just slid out, and I landed, like, right side of my face first, on the ground. I hit so hard, like, my eyes went dark, and I saw stars, and I was just, like, laying there, like, crying, because I was, like, 7 or 8, and it hurt so fucking bad, and I got up, and I was able to, like, get my shoelace off of the fucking thing, and I just rode back home, but my jaw pops now. It's since that day, my jaw's always popped. It's never gone away. Can you hear that?
Gross. On
this side. So yeah, I like understand that feeling of like being dazed and confused after like a massive fall. So I could have had a ghastly experience or something like paranormal at that time, and I probably wouldn't have even noticed because I was so messed up. So
nice.
Thanks.
You're still messed up.
Fuck you. I hate you.
My uncle, who was also my grandmother's caregiver, came out when Grandma had rang her bell signaling that she needed something. Well, my mouth just made a really weird noise. At first, my uncle was confused that I hadn't been able to assist my grandmother. I was outside with her after all, and Grandma and I knew he was inside cleaning and may not be able to come to Grandma's assistance very easily. When he got to the front porch and actually looked for and spotted me on the ground, sitting with my legs splayed out in front of me and my arm supported by my right hand, he realized Grandma had rang the bell because I needed help and wasn't able to get up by myself. So he grabbed some slip-on shoes for me and got me into the house to call my parents and prepare for transport to the ER. We discovered my arm was broken when he took the windbreaker jacket off and saw my forearm was twisted. Fucking ew.
Yeah, ew, gross, ew.
I can't watch like sports videos of football games and stuff like that where they show you terrible, terrible injuries where you're like, oh.
Whenever it happens live too, I'm like, oh babe, look at this. Oh wait, you might not want to look at this. And she always decides to watch, and then she always freaks out like, oh my god, that poor guy.
The hospital took x-rays of my arm almost as soon as we got there. I actually don't remember spending any time waiting in the waiting area to be seen. They placed me in a wheelchair with a pillow in my lap to help support and raise my arm as we awaited the x-ray images and the ER doctors to review them with us. I had broken both the ulna and the radius directly across the middle of the forearm, so I'm assuming like right
the two
here.
bones where it splits right there. Yeah.
Wait, is this your forearm? Or is this whole thing your forearm?
The whole thing is your forearm.
Okay.
It's the shin of your arm. You're welcome. The
doctors were told I was found holding my left arm in my right hand. They continually asked me how I'd been able to lift my arm and not send the bones through the top of it. They also asked me to recount how I fell and got injured, and when they realized my story wasn't changing and that I had witnesses that saw the fall, they knew I wasn't lying and said that the break should have been much worse and that the half of my forearm with my hand should have gone through my elbow. Fucking ew.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Injuries.
Because we didn't really finish off the Valley Girl thing, I'm just going to add ew.
What I walked away with instead was my arm fully intact. No plates or screws or pins were needed to be placed in the bones, and a small heart-shaped scar where part of the ulna had slightly punctured the skin, and that wasn't discovered until the doctors were setting my arm. Because of the doctor's assessments, the feeling I had of something or somebody there trying to catch and lift me, that I felt my arms be moved rather than me being able to move them, and the rather minimal damage, all things considered, I firmly believe that I had some angels with me when I fell that day. Aww. That's really nice that someone was there to protect you. I mean, if that's the case, because it sounds like it could have been way worse. The fact that doctors are like, it should have gone like way through your skin, bro.
Right.
Ugh, I just can't.
Compound fractures are definitely probably the grossest thing that you see in any sort of injury, just because it's like, that's supposed to be on the inside, and you're not used to seeing bone, let alone bone bleeding and sticking through a gaping wound.
We're in the middle of the newest episode of 911, and the first, I think, was it the first injury? One of the first injuries?
Good Doctor. We're in the middle of the Good Doctor right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we finished the 911 episode then, right? Where they're in a bowling alley, and...
Didn't see that. I think I was asleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, her hand was in the, like, this resetting... pins thing, and it like crushed down on her arm, and it showed you like the bone sticking out the side. I was like, that's gross. But yeah, anyway.
Good stuff. Gross. Ew. But thank you so much. We're done with half of your story. At this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to finish out the saga that is the stories that you have sent us. So thank you. We'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back. We're back again. Tell a friend.
Wow.
How'd the lyrics go?
Guess who's back?
Yeah, there you go. Back
again. Shady's back. Tell a friend. And
all right.
I think that's about everything I remember from that song.
So we're continuing the email here because there are more stories. So the next story I have, and that I can remember happening next, was when I was 14 years old. My sister had her first child, my eldest nephew, and I was babysitting for her. I was on the couch in the living room and had a strange feeling to check around the house. That's always bad when you're like, I need to check things out.
A little bit scary.
And my first instinct was to check the front door. My nephew's crib, mind you, was in what should have been the dining room, as that was the only place it could fit comfortably, with a desk that had been repurposed and redesigned into a changing table. Nice.
That's smart.
The strange feeling I had was that there was something unsettling around the house. And again, it was a city, and the neighborhood was turning rough, which is why my first instinct was to check the front door and make sure it was locked, which it was. I turned away from the door, which had me then facing my nephew's crib, and I saw a shadowy figure that was starting to lean into and reach into the crib to my nephew. That's like some supernatural shit.
Yeah, that is absolutely
what the fuck?
Yellow-eyed demon shit right there.
I will mention here that I was raised Catholic, still am proudly Catholic, and knew with my whole being that that strange shadowy figure was not friendly. I screamed at it, rebuking it in Christ's name, and it poofed into a shadowy smoke. I'd realized only then that my nephew had been fully asleep and that my shout was enough to wake him, and I was actually okay with that, as I wanted to make sure my nephew was okay, and I wanted to hold him to protect him as a result of this shadow figure's appearance and attempt to touch my nephew. Later the same day, I saw what looked like the same shadowy figure in a corner by a floor lamp that was on, and again rebuked it in the same fashion, and again screaming at it with the same results of a poof of shadowy smoke. I had told my mom and my sister what I had seen, though leaving out that the figure was starting to reach for my nephew, and my sister had told us that she felt a cold, chilling presence in the house and didn't feel comfortable until she had some holy water. We did get some holy water, and we sprinkled some in each room of the house. I hadn't seen the shadow figure again after we did the holy water through the house, and we made sure to keep a bottle of holy water in the house in case we ever needed it again.
Did you get the house blessed? I wonder that. And did you smudge and smudging didn't work, or were you guys just like, let's try holy water first thing?
Growing up, I know my mom had a bottle of holy water that she had, and I think that's what she did too. She just would go into rooms and just, do the burp, burp,
I typically only use holy water when I'm sprinkling it on someone that I'm performing a makeshift exorcism on after I've jammed a crucifix into their mouth.
Oh, Lord.
If you don't understand what I'm saying, listen to the newest episode 121 of Scary-ish.
Jeez.
Promo within a show.
I know there was a church that I went to when I was younger that they sold like little capsules of holy oil in them. They looked like little metal pills that were maybe... I can't make the shape with my fingers. They were really small.
And the listeners can't see it either, so no big deal.
They were really small, and they just had holy oil in them, and you could just, do a little dab of the cross wherever, whenever.
Right on.
Yeah, you know what I mean? On your face or whatever. Whatever.
Whatever.
Pretty.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to do the final count for pretties last night. I got so involved in my story.
Anyway, yeah, so I totally get the need to want to have something. Maybe they didn't go and smudge things or whatever.
It costs money to get a house blessed. That's the...
Does it?
Yeah, that's the catch-22 of the whole thing. It's like, I need my house blessed. Well, do you got the dollar bills, y'all? Because if not, Satan's going to roam free in your house. And that sucks.
That's what I don't understand about the church, is if you need help, shouldn't they just be like, oh, yeah, we'll come by and help you?
Got you, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the end, if it's something really bad, they're not going to charge you. But I don't know. Every time that my family got our house blessed, which wasn't a lot growing up because we didn't move a lot, but it did cost money. And when my friends got their houses and they got their houses blessed when we got older, it all cost money. And it was kind of astonishing how much money it was costing people. So, yeah, like between $250 and $1,000.
What the... What?
Quite expensive. So, anyways.
I'd be like, let the demons have me.
Wow. Let's not say that out loud, thank you.
JK, LOL, I don't really mean it. Stay the fuck away from me.
Satan was getting so excited, then you said the key phrases that hold him back.
Oh,
that
God.
hold him at the gates of hell.
What if
JK, LOL. And he was like, damn it, never mind. She said JK, LOL.
I'm just
gonna head back down now, dejectedly climbing his stairs with his 3-headed hound.
I'm just imagining him being like, she said JK, LOL. That's so funny. God. Okay, hold on.
Stupid asshole. How would you say some shit like that out loud? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. People say it in movies all the time.
JK, LOL.
No.
This isn't a fucking movie.
Okay, fine, whatever. Okay. I feel bad. What if I get possessed now? Damn.
And people are going to watch back to this episode and be like, he fucking told her.
You heard it here first?
Heard it here. He said he was going to shove a crucifix in her mouth. Don't hit me. Everyone's watching.
Okay. So my fifth story actually occurred over a period of time and includes many people who experienced and witnessed what happened. My parents used to run an upholstery business for 10 years. During that 10-year span, the business had been moved between 2 locations. Both locations had heavy doors. We had security cameras on the doors in both locations, as well as a doorbell that would only chime whenever the doors were fully opened, so we would know a customer had come in while we were in the back working on jobs for the customers. I say we because there were small jobs that my sister and I were able to help with, and we did help the business run more efficiently for our parents. As a child who did work for my parents, I totally get it. Because back in the day, probably when I was like 13, 14, I was in high school. I'm the one typing out all the contracts for my parents for because they had like this tour company. And so
tour company?
Yeah. What did I say?
Tour.
That's how I...
T-O-R-E.
I don't fuck off. Okay. So...
Buried.
So yeah. So that's just what I would do. Because companies would come in and be like, hey, we need this many people on a trip. And I'd be like, click, 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 and my parents would fax it over.
Nice.
So, yeah, I know child labor. It happens.
Wow, that's messed up to call it that. I thought you were going to say something nice about how helping your parents out with their business is just like the sign of a good family. You're like, yeah, I'm all about that child labor.
No, it's just like I've been there, as a kid. Sometimes it's like my parents don't know the language. So they're like, okay, kids, help us out with this English stuff.
Right on.
So anyway, we would frequently have the front doors of both locations open and close on their own. So this place would have the doors open and close on their own. Again, these were heavy doors, and there's absolutely no way that wind would have been able to encourage these doors to open. One of our workers, Dawn, was as religious as I am, and every time we had heard the doors open with the chime alert and not see anybody there, he would proclaim that an angel had come in to protect us. We even caught the doors opening and closing on the security cameras, and clearly the cameras showed that nobody was physically there. Would be cool if you could see like orbs coming in or mists coming in, just barely seeing anything.
Yeah.
That would be really neat.
I honestly, personally, when I see stuff like that, I'm far more skeptical when I see like an orb, which is bro spelled backwards, if you didn't know. I hate Zach Baggins so much. Or like
I've been watching Ghost Adventures, and he's like...
I was quarantined to the goddamn guest room because I had a sniffle, a cold, and in the meantime, she's in that room watching Ghost Adventures in our bedroom watching Ghost Adventures, and I was just so disgusted when I finally noticed. I was like, have you been watching Ghost Adventures? She's like, yes. So yeah, this is the end of the podcast. I just thought we should announce that now.
Okay, shut up. You're so stupid. All right. So the only time that we didn't have the doors opening and closing with nobody being physically there, Don had said that he felt all the angels had left and that somebody had chased them off. What the fuck?
That sounds scary.
And that somebody he was referring to was a new hire that my parents had who didn't last long as an upholsterer. What the fuck?
That sounds kind of mean to say, like, the new hire he brought in chased away all the angels, pretty much Satan.
Once he had been fired, because he was caught attempting to steal from my parents, the doors started opening and closing on their own again, and Dawn had said the angels were coming back. So it's like... that employee was the fucking devil.
What if it... Okay. I don't want to speculate wildly here, but I'm pretty good at it.
Why would the angels leave if you need protection from someone evil?
No, that's not what I was going to say. Well, that's also a really good point, though. But what if they weren't angels? What if you interpreted it as angels based off the fact that you just saw the doors opening and closing? Could just as easily have been something evil, and this person who was stupid and apparently not a good worker was actually your protection. And now that they left, everyone's like, all right... pile back in there with all the evil again. Like, you don't know. Just saying. Keep an open mind.
I wonder why that building specifically. Maybe that's like... there's a show on Netflix about all the angels. It's like in Spanish, but it's about the angels and their whole system of how they work with... how they interact hierarchy with people, and they just have a warehouse. They have a warehouse of angels, and what if this building that this business was in is where they work out of? Maybe that'd be fucking cool.
It's like on the other side, that's their office, but the door opens on both sides every time.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That's a really good idea. Someone work that into your screenplay or your pilot that you're building.
Give me credit. All right, so
bring Robin into your writer's room. She's a blast.
I'll bring everyone boba. Okay, so since my last stories had angelic involvement, this one also does, and took place when I was about 16 years old, and we were moving from the city to the country. I had a waterbed through my childhood, and if you know anything about waterbeds, you know that they require a heater, otherwise the beds are freezing cold.
And there's more motion in the ocean.
Okay, so... I've never had a waterbed, so I'm curious. So you put the heater in there. Is it underneath?
It's underneath it. It's like a pad. Imagine like an actual heating pad.
Is it possible to melt through the plastic of the waterbed?
It's like, that's what I'm saying. Imagine like a heating pad for your back. It's not like directly exposed coils. It's like going to be transferred up through like some material that's not going to melt it. So it needs time to warm up too, because you need to be able to warm up all the water in your waterbed, because most of the time you're just filling it from the sink. Or like a hose in the backyard.
Really?
Yeah, because you just run a hose through a window, or you run a hose.
When do you have to fill up your bed?
Like once you build your bed out, just like any other bed, like when you drop your mattress in, you drop in a mattress that's like an empty, what it looks like a big raft. It looks like a rectangular raft, And it's just, you fill it up with water, then you have your water bed, but you put down your heater, then you put your mattress on top of it, and you fill it up with water, turn your heater on, and you usually don't sleep on them the first night, unless you have like a really thick comforter that you sleep on top of, because it's really fucking cold. So I've had my heater go out before, like the power went out and the heater turned off, and woken up like, oh my god, like my mattress got down like 60 degrees and I was laying on it. It was just terribly, terribly cold.
All right.
Still didn't turn off my fan, though. Hashtag team fan all the way.
Oh, get out of here. Leave. Okay. I remember when my waterbed heater quit working. It was about 6 months before we decided and started to move. For about 2 weeks prior and following my waterbed heater quitting, I had constantly smelled a floral smell. But the smell of these flowers were like nothing that could be found on this planet. It's a sweet-smelling blend of roses, honeysuckle, hyacinth, and other very fragrant flowers, almost sickeningly sweet, yet heavenly, but still pleasant enough that you want to find them and clip some of them into a bouquet of fragrance. I remember being frustrated because I only smelled this when I was in my room, nowhere else in or around my house, and what was worse is that nobody else was smelling it, so I was sure I was going crazy. I did talk to my mom about it when I was trying to see if she smelled it in my room, and she said nobody else was meant to, that it was the smell of angels, and that I was smelling them because they were protecting me. That's really sweet.
That is really sweet.
During this time is, again, when my waterbed heater quit working. The unit lit up like it was supposed to and seemingly was working. It just wasn't heating my bed. So we unplugged it, figuring it was malfunctioning, and put foam pads on top of the waterbed mattress until we had warm enough weather to drain it. This was still at the tail end of winter, and again, Ohio. By the time the weather had warmed up enough that it was safe to drain the mattress is when we decided we were moving. So we drained the mattress and disassembled the bed, and that is when we found that the waterbed heater had not just malfunctioned, but had burned the wood support under the water mattress and lining.
Wow.
My parents and sister had disassembled the bed, showed the wood support to my uncle who had once owned a waterbed business, and he said that I could have easily died in a fire when that happened. I had even told my parents I knew the waterbed heater quit working and knew it had stopped in the middle of the night, so yes, it should have caused a full-fledged fire that consumed my bed with me in it. That's so scary.
Typically, it's not going to burn. It's not going to, like, burn the bottom of the bed. I don't know. I've never had like direct like wood for my mattress. Like there's always been like a liner so that it'll like melt the liner if it gets way too hot. It's a scary thing to think that you could burn alive in your bed.
That's super scary.
Yeah.
There are still more stories I have to share. This is still just a portion of my experiences, but I fear this email may hit limits that won't send properly. I'll send more of my stories in another email. Again, all of these are more than welcome to be read on any and all of the shows you do, and I understand if you split them up into different shows. My husband follows and listens to all the shows and shares them with me. That's really sweet.
That is sweet.
I only have a limited number of apps that I trust, and I don't have a job that lets me listen to podcasts like his job does. And do feel free to contact me to ask more questions about any or all of these stories. Annette, aka I Am Beef Trainer.
I knew it. I knew it was I Am Beef Trainer. Right on. I Am Beef Trainer, thank you for compiling all those and sending it in such a well thought out and well written email. So we sincerely appreciate that. That's a lot of stuff, and I totally believe, and we have very similar like alignments there. Like a lot of my family has gone to Puerto Rico because that's where my dad's side of the family is from. We both grew up in the Midwest, which is pretty cool. We both had waterbeds because we're fucking awesome. So it's really cool to hear all these similarities between the two of us. I've had heaters stop. I've never had heaters like scald my bed before. Like that is sincerely crazy.
Super scary.
So, and the fact that you were smelling that, maybe that's what the wood smells like when it's getting scalded. Who the hell knows? You know what I mean? It's like you're smelling this mixture of a bunch of different things based off of the burning, but that was like the angels coming to make sure your bed didn't set on fire. However you see it, man, that's just, we're very glad that nothing happened that would have kept you from staying here. And apparently there's something that they can share with us, maybe on Discord, that shows us like the scar from where their compound fracture occurred when they broke their arm rollerblading. So kind of interested to see that, even if it might be a little bit gross. But thank you so much for sending those stories. And what do you think?
I think that, I mean, some people do have like guardian angels, you know? And my mom likes to joke that my dad, his parents, I think it was his mom or something, likes to protect my dad a lot. So if my mom's picking on my dad, she'll make bad things happen to my mom or something like that, like stupid stuff. so that my mom stops picking on my dad or something. I don't know. But I think some people do have spirits like that.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. I've always felt like my grandpa protected me since he passed away when I was in 7th grade. And I've had his crucifix. I gave it to my brother to use. We would hang it over our bed just so we can feel like he's watching. But honestly, there was a lot of stuff that used to scare me when I was younger, and even when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And I just felt like kind of darkness stalked my life just a little bit, to the point where I just feel uncomfortable sometimes. And I think we've read a lot of emails and heard a lot of stories about stuff like that, where you just feel like you're being watched. And I'd always just sort of picture my grandfather around me, like protecting me, and it always like gave me a sense of ease. And I honestly haven't like felt really creeped out like that in a really, really long time. All right. Well, we're going to get into my last and the last email of the show. And this one's subject is go back to sleep. Feel free to read on the pod. That sounds like a kind of terrifying subject for this, but we'll see what goes on here. Starts out like this. Hi, Spooky Mom, Robin, and Adam.
Hello.
Hello. And then downstairs, my mom yells hello. I'm another longtime listener who has Spotify suggestions to thank for discovering the podcast. Shout out to Spotify. And I would love your insight on this scary-ish encounter. What the fuck are you laughing about?
I'm laughing I just looked down at the chat for 1 second, and I just...
What'd you see? Let us know. Let us know what that rafflecopter's about over there, Robin.
Because we were talking about earlier, how I can't drive stick shift at all. And the snark just goes, when I drive stick, I only know how to go into reverse. Giggity.
Dang. That's pretty good. I will continue.
I'm dying. Okay, go.
The email continues. Let's start when I was 5 or 6 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night to see a strange figure in my room. It was taller than either of my parents, and it was tucking my second favorite dog plushie, which I had fallen asleep with in my bed.
I think that's really cute, because I used to have like stuff like that too.
I had a big red Clifford. That was my favorite one.
Really?
It's probably still around somewhere, and I love that thing. Anyways, it was stuffing this dog plushie into one of my dresser drawers. The figure was pitch black, and while its silhouette was mostly humanoid, its entire face protruded outward and tapered to a point like an enormous beak. The beak swung toward me when the figure realized I was awake and said, "Don't worry, go back to sleep." Incredibly, I did. I completely forgot the encounter until the next day when my mother was putting away my laundry and asked why I had stuffed my plush dog into my sock drawer. Fast forward to my sophomore year in college. That's a huge time jump, but I'm into it. Okay. So you sound like Sam Winchester right now, just a little bit different. We keep referencing him. Fast forward to my sophomore year in college. Even though I like to fall asleep to the sounds of my TV, I woke up one night to find my dorm room dark and silent, except for an intermittent scrabbling sound at my 6th floor window. I don't know what scrabbling sounds like. I imagine someone's like, Quijibo, what the fuck's up?
It's like all the letters on the board.
It looked like you had something to say. I wasn't sure if you were looking over here, so.
No. I'm just thinking, I know what it sounds like when you throw all the Scrabble tiles across the board. Yeah. So that's just what I'm hearing.
Fuck this game. Okay, so there's a scrabbling sound at the 6th floor window. High-key terrified that something was scratching at the screen, I squinted short-sightedly through the room. Silhouetted against the streetlight filtering through the window was that tall, black, beaky figure. It said, "Don't worry, it's just the hell. Go back to sleep." I'm going to make your figure sound like Bane, I'm sorry. So I did. And again, the next morning, I'd forgotten the encounter. Instead, I was puzzled to realize that while I'd slept, someone had turned off my TV, removed my glasses from my face, and folded them neatly by my pillow. I knew I hadn't done these things myself because I never fold my glasses legs, and my TV remote was on my desk out of arm's reach. Still, I wasn't alarmed because my friends and I were constantly going in and out of each other's dorm rooms, and I figured that one of them had done it until I saw that my door was chain-locked from the inside. I met my friends for breakfast, and they brought up the unseasonable sleet we'd gotten overnight, which is when the bizarre one-sided conversation came flooding back to me. Normally, I'd chalk these encounters up as particularly vivid dreams, which I do frequently have, except that the figure seemed to, A, physically move solid objects in the waking world, and B, access knowledge that I did not have, the unexpected hailstorm.
Interesting.
This doesn't seem to fit with the standard shadow people experience because in neither instance did I feel afraid, and I've never had sleep paralysis.
It's like Mothman, kind of.
Mothman predicts, like, disasters, so it's a little bit different. There was nothing menacing about this figure. I don't know if his life got destroyed when he was 5 years old after that. There was nothing menacing about this figure, but I'm deeply curious as to what it might be and if there have been other similar sightings, and would love to hear your speculations, as well as thoughts from Spooky Friends community on Facebook and or Discord. Anyways, thanks for reading and for all the chills and thrills you provide on the pod. Cheers, Jay, they, them.
Nice.
P.S. If you'd like some fresh nightmare fuel, do a Google image search on Schnabelperchten. I don't know if I said that right. It's SCHNABELPERCHTEN for anyone who wants to Google search it. For a vague approximation of the shape of my visitor's face, I'm picturing a kinku from D&D as well.
The hell is a kinku?
It's a raven person.
Oh.
I'm not convinced that this was the creature I met because I have no cultural or regional connections with the Schnabelperchten outside of a brief visit to Vienna later in life, though it's kind of funny that in some ways my visitor could be seen as trying to, quote, tidy up my room.
That's cute.
P.P.S. I did share the story on Reddit some years back, so if it rings a bell, that was me. I promise I'm not ripping off someone else's anecdote.
Nice.
Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Honestly, I'm not too sure what this thing could have been that visited you. I mean, my initial speculation when you were a kid was that it was probably just one of your parents and a really creepy, sleepy vision. But if it happened to you again when you were an adult, even if you're, a sophomore in college, you're still pretty much an adult. That's way fucking creepier. And it's a really good observation that you mentioned that, one, it moved something around in the physical world, and two, it mentioned something that was going on outside that you didn't have knowledge of, unless you just made an assumption and then had this weird hallucination from when you were 5 that just happened to tell you what was going on outside and you just happened to be right. So that's just as, coincidental, I would suppose, as anything else. What do you think, Robin?
I think that people feel things. Like, some people say they can... What is it called when they guess what's going to happen before it happens? Like rain. People know when it's going to rain. They just feel it. They know it's going to rain.
Premonition? Intuition?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But maybe it's something like that, where it's like your body felt a little different, so you're like, it's going to hail. And
then this thing shows up to tell you that you were right, that it's hailing, and then takes your glasses off and turns your TV off.
It's Mothman, okay?
Mothman doesn't do this shit. Maybe Mothman doesn't tidy up rooms. Mothman tries to scare people away from natural disasters.
It's Overhaul.
It's Overhaul?
The guy from My Hero Academia that has the big beak thing.
Okay, so there you go. Clairvoyance is what 777 suggested. Maybe some clairvoyance tossed in there. It's very hard to speculate, but if any additional experiences happen, we definitely want to hear about them. So thank you so much for sending that in.
Thank you so much, everyone who joined us for this episode of Storytime. You guys are absolutely awesome. We know some areas of the world, it's really effing late, and you guys are so nice to stick around and watch us, and you guys are so nice. Thank you.
In fact, for a lot of folks who watch us, it's really effing early because they are in the early hours of the AM while they watch us. So thank you so much to those of you from Australia.
Thank you to everybody who sent in their stories for this episode of Storytime. If you folks have stories that you guys want to send us, how can they do that?
They can email storytime@scarish.com, which is our email address, or they can go to our website, scarish.com, and click on Contact Us, or they can hit us up on any of our social medias. We have a Facebook, which is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. We have a Twitter, which is @scarishpod, and we have an Instagram, which is @scarishpodcast. So however you want to reach out to us, we are always here to listen. If you want to send us a story that's just for our ears, that is okay. But if you want to send us something to be shared, just let us know. Hit us up. Let us know what the story is, and we will work it into the queue and get it shared on the Storytime episodes. For folks who would like to donate to us monetarily, Robin, how can they do so?
You folks can go to patreon.com/scaryishpodcast, and those are monthly donations. There's a bunch of different tiers on there. Check them out if you want. And then there's a one-time donation spot you can go to, ko-fi.com/scaryishpodcast. All donations go to helping us upgrade our studio setup and survive. So if you folks want to help us keep this podcast going, feel free to go down those avenues, or watch us live every Tuesday so far at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's fun donation games that we have on there with this. We have stream bosses and stuff like that. It's a good time. So watch us live.
Indeed. And thank you so much to everyone who sent in their stories. Thank you so much to everyone who watched us, all of it. We appreciate every single one of you. And I think that is just about everything we have for this episode of Scarish. So, Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Oh, bye.